Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Atheist Avengers. Today, we thought we would just kind of kick back, take our shoes off, grab a beer, and chit-chat.
Is that what that smell is?
If I was allowed to, I'd grab a cigar and have a cigar.
I don't mind that so much.
So, I'm here with my co-host, Major Mac. Hey, Major, how are you?
Hello, everyone.
And, first of all, let's start out with thanking everyone who's supported us. We appreciate you guys hanging on. We've mentioned this several times, but everybody knows who was asking us to come back and produce more shows, that we were gone for a while. But we just want to thank our fans. We thank the people who listen to this and get something out of it. This is why we do it, because we certainly don't get paid. So we put these podcasts together just because we feel like that the voice that we have can help. And again, we've talked about it many times where the podcast community is important, I believe. And I think it creates or it provides an important service. So we want to continue doing that. So today we didn't have anything else planned except just kind of to kick back and let you get to know who we are. So here we go.
You got to thank the Lord, right?
I'm actually an atheist.
There is absolutely no doubt that atheism will win hands down.
If I were in a situation where I could stop a child rapist, I would. But that's the difference between me and your God.
Welcome to Atheist Avengers Radio with your hosts, Agent Wyatt Mathers and Major Mac Guffin. Our continuing mission is to explore our world, to seek out injustices and oppressive ideologies, to leave science and reason in our wake, fighting for justice, truth, and equality for all. We are here to inspire the next generation of godless heroes, avenge the harms of religion, educate the uninformed, and ensure the well-being of all individuals by defending the separation between church and state. The Atheist Avengers. Because together, we can change the world.
How are you, Major Mac?
Well, I'm doing good today. I'm still trying to get over a slight cold I've had for the past 2 weeks. Can't tell where my allergies begin and my cold is starting to end.
Yeah, well, here in North Carolina, that tends to happen. We for those of you that don't live in North Carolina, we have serious pollen issues around here, where you have to clean the car windows before you can see to drive in the mornings. So when spring and fall rolls around, we have a lot of allergy problems, and I'm suffering quite a bit myself. But let's just start this with background. Let's talk about where Major Mac come from first.
Oh, Lord.
Just kind of start with, because me and you have different backgrounds.
Oh, yes.
I grew up very religious, in a religious home, which I'll talk about a little more later, with the difference between my mom and my dad and religion, which I think allowed me to be a little more open-minded than maybe I would have been otherwise. It's my understanding that you didn't grow up that way. So tell me a little bit about that.
No, I actually have not had much religion when I was growing up. Of course, other than the goddamn this or goddamn that. That was about the only time God's name was invoked. But, I remember it was about 2 or 3 years old. I went to, I seen a commercial on TV, and it was a toy that I wanted. And so I wished that I had that toy for Christmas. And I told my mom and dad about it. Didn't tell them exactly what I wanted, but I told them that I seen something on TV that I really wanted. Well, Mom says, well, if you pray good enough and wish, Santa Claus, you might get it. And
wait, so she told you if you prayed or wished on Santa Claus?
Exactly.
Either or.
So
why not do both? Don't take your chances. Just do both, and just whichever one works out. If both of them work out good, you got something to sell.
Exactly. And so at the same time, I was questioning that Jesus, like we always invoke, like Jesus Christ, God damn it, and so even at an early age, I was actually saying GD, and So I kind of threw it in there at Mom at the same time as like, Mom was pretty much her explanation for Jesus and Santa Claus were that they were the same person. And so Christmas rolls around, and of course, I didn't get the toy that I was wanting. And so I never believed in either Santa Claus or Jesus after that.
That just screwed you over for both of them.
It screwed me over for both at the same time. And so growing up, my family, we never went to church. And I have an extended family. My mom was one of 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so when we went to like any family gathering, my Uncle Larry was the very first one that told the nastiest, dirtiest joke. It would make everyone laugh, and that's how we started the dinner.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, this was my religious upbringing. I watched rated R movies from the very first time. I mean, I saw Jaws in theater at the age of 3 when it came out in 1975.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I am scared of the ocean because of that.
I would be too. I didn't see it until I was a teenager, and I'm still scared of the ocean.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, so when it came to religion, there was really nothing there. So going throughout my life, I didn't have any church upbringing or any kind of like, we never went to the church for any other thing other than funerals or weddings. And most of the time we went, the only time that they were mentioning of God was, of course, during the funerals. But, weddings, of course, they weren't mentioned or what have you on those. But I don't know. It was just, I never had that animosity toward it because it wasn't there.
So is it one of those things where your family wasn't religious, but they were still what you would consider conservative?
My mom and dad told me that our family was actually liberal when they were growing up.
Okay.
A couple of my uncles and cousins have gone on now to own their own businesses, and I guess the religion and the conservatism came in when they owned their own business and didn't want to pay taxes as much as the rest of us. So, yeah, I went off and joined the military for a while, but this is where I started actually coming into my own. My mom and dad were always prejudiced. They were very bigoted. They didn't like anybody else that wasn't like us. We were white, cisgender people, and they did not like any other differences than us.
Right.
So when I went off into the military, I became my own person, and I met a lot of people. I met, the gay people for the first time. I mean, I can actually say there were people that were gay when I was growing up, but I didn't know them personally. Mm-hmm. So I went to Hawaii for my tour duty, and I actually started learning about different cultures, different people, and I actually found out that this is where, I like to be around different people, learning different things. So after my tour duty, I came home, and something had transformed in my family. My uncle, who used to tell the best dirty jokes, is now a reverend.
Oh, my gosh.
Exactly. And my mom and dad have joined one of the worst fundamentalist Baptist churches in Hickory. So, yeah, I was completely taken aback by this. And it has definitely sprouted some very weird and funny family reunions in the last few years.
So would you say that they, growing up or when they were younger, they were just kind of no religion? They didn't think about it. It wasn't really a concern of theirs? Because there's the big question when people are not religious and then they become religious, of whether those people ever really, it's kind of like the no true Scotsman fallacy with talking about Christians and talking about atheists that become, or Christians that become atheists. Well, they never really was Christian. So a lot of people want to turn that argument around and say, okay, anybody who become Christian that were a nun, let's say,
exactly.
the N-O-N-E, they were never really an atheist.
Right.
Would you could you speak to that about your parents? Do you feel like that they were just we're just not thinking about it? It's just not a conversation. We're not really considering heaven, hell, God, Jesus. We're not considering any of that. So
right. I actually thinking back where my mom and dad were when I was growing up was it was more or less we just didn't talk about it. We didn't go. From what I understand, my mom and dad both never went to church growing up as kids. But I guess it was like in this area, you are expected to know about God and Jesus, I guess. It was just always in the background. But it wasn't really brought to the forefront until now that my mom and dad are actually up in their, my dad just turned 70, mom's 68. And so with my mom's brother Larry being the Reverend now, I think a lot of it has to do with him pushing it onto them. But also at the same time, they're all getting to that point in life that they just are hoping something is there after they're dead. So
in a way, it's a social club for them.
Exactly.
It's a social outlet. It allows them to participate and feel like they belong. Because I can tell you from my experience, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, that there's a lot of peer pressure about religion in this area, in the southeastern United States, specifically our area. And it's automatically assumed that you're religious and that you go to church or that you believe in God, and there's a lot of pressure there because everybody, even though there's a lot of people I'm sure that doesn't, they're not out.
Exactly.
They don't talk about it. So you feel like that to fit in, you have to fit this mold.
Oh, yes.
Even though most, or I would say, I'd venture to say at least half of the people don't fit that mold, everybody acts like they do.
Oh, right.
So it's a perceived unity, really.
Exactly.
And
I was doing actually the exact same thing that you're discussing now. Being in this area, my wife and I had, my wife had just recently came out of the Baptist church, and I kept thinking it was me. That it was me that was pushing her toward her losing her religion, and I didn't want to be the cause of that. So I was more than willing to go to church with her just to help her out to keep her religion or whatever it was.
Sure.
Because I wanted to be a part of something, and this was when she already was losing her faith, and she was doing stuff on the internet and found the meetup where she actually found you guys.
Yeah.
And she says, well, let's go try these guys out and see what you think. And so, of course, it was like an eye-opening experience. Here I am with the Hickory Humanists for the first time, and I'm like, wow, this is where my group is. I really was looking for something to belong to. And I know I was even willing to take up Catholicism if I had to, just to make, anything
Right.
to where I could be feeling like I was a part of a group. And even though I would have never believed, I was still searching for that something to be a part of. So
right.
I do understand what people are looking for in the area. It's just community. It's fellowship. That's what we're looking for. And I was willing to give up my non-beliefs just to be a part of that.
And that community, the church community and the belonging to the church society is so ingrained in this area. It was just what you do. It was the outlet. It's the only outlet that you were made to think that it was available.
Exactly.
So, and for a long time it was, actually.
Yes.
It was, if you were involved in anything that was social interactions, it had to do with church. I would say even more so than like school activities. So that's one of the reasons why I got fed up with not having that. We, as humans, I feel like we're social animals.
We are.
Which is just a step away from being pack animals.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are involved to appreciate the protection that is involved in being social.
Yes,
and
most definitely.
having a community and having a village or having a pact or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it was trying to overcome that is the reason the Hickory Humanist was created in the first place.
Right.
To give people that alternative. And we've seen that with things like the reasonable recovery that we try to do with the Hickory Humanists. That's just a alternative to AA, which Alcoholics Anonymous is very religious based.
Exactly.
And if you didn't fit that mold, then you wouldn't. They were not considering you being helped.
Exactly.
Because one of the steps is admitting to the higher power thing. Well, if you don't do that step, then you're failing the program. And not everybody's going to fit that mold.
No.
So anyway, we'll try not to get off on tangents here, but I'm sure.
No, that's what it's
happen.
all about today. We can get off on a tangent today.
So you came back from the military with probably more of an open mind than you had before you left.
Oh, I had a huge open mind when I came back.
So you had experienced diversity.
Right, and I had also experienced like I said, I'm speaking from a white privilege here, so nobody take this the wrong way. But in Hawaii, the whites are the minorities. And I actually felt what it was like, or I can't say exactly like what it was like, but I was being pushed down upon over there because of my skin color. And I was like, wow, so this is what some of these people feel like. I'm like, wow, I don't like this. So I was like...
It's like, get me back to my white privilege.
So it was like a point where I was like, you know what? I know this is just a minuscule drop in the bucket of what these people have felt like for years, many, many centuries. And I was like, wow, okay, now this is what it feels like. I'm not going to do this any friggin' more. And it was a complete eye-opener, because I know that the Hawaiians definitely don't like the white people because we took their islands from them. They are still blaming us for taking their islands.
Oh, we did.
We did. we actually jailed Queen Leleʻukalani until she turned over the islands to us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand the animosity. And so coming back from that, I did have a much more open mind. And I was like, no, you can't treat people like this anymore. You got to be a human about this. And so that experience did change me a lot. So getting away from mom and dad was a good thing.
Right. Well, and I can say the same. I mean, when I left for college was a lot of eye-opening experiences with that. Even though I went to a Christian college that was very conservative, I was still starting to see the world.
Oh, yeah.
Where I hadn't experienced the world before. So, well, when you come back, let's talk about a little bit of the interaction between you and your parents when you come back. Now, you said when you come back, they had already kind of went through that conversion.
Yes.
And been converted and were Christian at that point. Did they put pressure on you to fall in line with that?
Actually, no. It wasn't pushed on me. My mom and dad had suggested that I may come out with them sometimes to go to church, just to see how it was like. But no, other than the family reunions, which were circle prayers, the prayers actually lasted about 10 minutes now instead of the usual, let's bless the food, fuck the food or whatever, let's eat. But,
good Lord, good meat, good guy, let's eat.
That's exactly right. But, other than that, I mean, it was definitely, they haven't pushed it on me, but I know, getting with our family reunions, I keep going back to this, because that is where my uncle, the Reverend, is
Uncle Reverend.
Yeah, Uncle Reverend. He takes over and kind of does the old let me push God down your throat kind of thing. They've even actually prayed over my wife's womb that she would quit school and come home and have babies.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, just so we're clear, your wife has a PhD, correct?
Yes, she does.
She's a very educated lady.
Yes.
Smart. And while she was in school, they actually said she needs to come home and make babies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. This was like probably...
She needs to quit all that school nonsense.
Exactly. So, yeah, it was like every reunion we were getting to, and then they were doing that prayer for her womb. And it wasn't just one or twice. It was like every time. Let's pray Amanda comes home, has babies, and stays home and babysits. And so, of course, it was driving her insane.
Oh, you said her name. We're going to have to beep that out.
Oh, sorry.
Beep.
Beep. Get it.
All right.
So, but yeah, my wife would come home from school, and every single time it was, let's pray over her womb and let's have kids. And so it became monotonous. She was actually using school as a reason not to come home to my reunions. And even though she didn't have anything to do at that time, she would definitely use it to its fullest extent. But now she is home full-time from college, and she's looking for a job right now. And it's like, I guess, the paraphernalia that we're getting, a lot of stuff coming to us, the humanist stuff, books, AHA stuff is coming to us. Mm-hmm. And my mom and dad check our mail. They're we actually have the same mailbox, and so they're getting our mail and everything. And so with the last family reunion was the very first one since I've been home in 16 years that we did not have a prayer circle. So I think things are starting to go in the opposite direction.
Wow. So do you feel like that they're finally getting the hint that it's not really something you're comfortable with, and they're backing off because of that? Or do you think they're backing off on it? I
think they are backing off from me because I'm speaking a lot. Like let's say, for instance, last night, there was a thing on my mom and dad's Facebook where our family had posted a video.
Facebook causes so much trouble.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it does. But when I say this name, you're going to know why.
All right.
Let me get it out. Pastor Greg Locke.
Oh, God.
Exactly.
Hey, Bobby C., tell us about Pastor Greg Locke.
Yeah.
He's been trying to do a debate with him, and he's canceled on him like 3 times, I think.
Yeah. So
anyway, go ahead.
That video was on there on my dad's Facebook yesterday, and one of our family members had posted it. And of course, out of curiosity, because I know who Greg Locke is, I was like, let me play this and see what it says. And of course, he's going on a tirade about the transsexuals in the bathrooms in North Carolina, saying about men dressing up as women and perverted and everything else. Well, I stopped the video right there, and Mom and Dad and I had a long conversation about what we used to think trans people were to what they actually are today in our minds. Well, what they really were back then too, but what we were assuming were trans people were just men dressed up in women's clothing. So I had a long talk with Mom and Dad. And by the time I finished, my dad was saying they need to send all of our politicians across the sea somewhere in a boat that's going to sink on the way. So he was like, it's like he's been listening to news so badly, like Fox News, whatever, he's getting confused about what is actual news and what is actually propaganda.
Right.
And so when we talked about it, he was like, well, now I understand, these people are people. It's like, that's what we've been trying to say. And this law puts their lives in danger. Mm-hmm. And I showed him some pictures of people who are actually trans people. And he was like, he couldn't tell their sex. I said, that's what I've been trying to tell you. That is not a man dressed up like a woman or a woman dressed up like a man. These are people who are actually having gender differences.
Right.
So
it's just a woman that has a slightly different anatomy than what you would consider normally a woman if you're a conservative person.
Exactly.
And what's the big deal? And I think one of the problems, at least I saw when I was growing up, was the seediness of the whole gay lifestyle. Mm-hmm. They made it seem like that it was every bit of it was this dark, dank nightclubs in New York where they were going and doing drugs and they were having crazy sex, and there was that going on, of course. But whenever you criminalize, and I'm using quotation marks here, when you criminalize activities such as being gay, it forces that seediness of the lifestyle to be there.
Right.
Anytime something's criminalized. So the taboo that we as a society placed on that caused it to be an underground activity, which then in turn made it to be something that was bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what we don't realize is if we let that out, there's still going to be that underground party scene, but that's not monopolized by gay people.
I was going to say, I've been to a few places like that.
Exactly. I mean, it is. I mean, look at strip bars.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of Christian people that look down on strip bars. Okay, well, that's just as seedy in your definition as what the gay lifestyle that you think it is. So when we bring it out, then we get things like, and I always hesitate to use this word, but normal families.
Right.
And I hate using that word for whatever I'm talking about, because I think there is never a normal or what is, standard.
Oh, yeah.
But if you do pinpoint what is typical, you look at things like Neil Patrick Harris.
Right.
He is a successful gay man with a husband and children that they adopted, lives in a nice home, is a lot of people would consider a asset to society.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not a exception to the rule by no means.
No.
But if he wasn't allowed to be open and out, then the perception of him being this seedy lifestyle would be there.
Exactly.
And I think that's where we lose it.
And also with Neil Patrick Harris, as you're talking about, he is well known. People watched him grow up on Doogie Howser, MD. We watched him in the Starship Troopers, where he played a colonel, very macho.
Oh yeah,
type
I forgot
colonel.
about that.
Exactly. And so you grew up watching him, and so for him to come out gay is like, oh, okay.
And he played an incredible womanizer on How I Met Your Mother.
Exactly.
It's just a good actor. It seems like, I don't know him personally. He's hung out with me, but he seems like he's a nice guy, and he takes care of his responsibilities.
Exactly.
And, hey, what more can you ask out of any human being?
Exactly. And I think that's what one of the big things is like my mom and dad have come to know gay people in their lives now. And so, of course, having these people in their lives has made them change their mind about certain things.
Right.
And I think that's one of the big things that I finally, when I was able to get away and do my own thing for a while, that it really did teach me that. And I think, we've even heard about in politics where, laws are being made differently or more equality made when people actually know these people, like politicians with gay kids. Then they'll make
that'll change their mind in a hurry.
It does
for somebody that they love.
Exactly.
To come out.
And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. So,
well, I've made the correlation before between coming out as gay, coming out as atheist. Again, disclaimer: I realize they both have their own sets of challenges, and I don't mean to completely equate them, but there's a lot of similarities in that. I have a lot of friends that didn't know that they knew any atheists.
Right.
And when they learned that I was atheist, then there was that, oh my gosh, I've got to either change the way I think about Gene.
Right.
Or I got to change the way I think about Wyatt. Or I have to change the way I think about atheists.
Right.
And I can tell you that some of my friends went both directions.
Right.
Some of them went the way of changing how they thought about me, which is fine.
Right.
Because that's not the type of person that I really want in my life anyway.
Exactly.
And then the other people who changed their way of thinking about atheists now are, changing the way they think about a lot of things.
Exactly.
Including, gay people. And I think it's just that removing that taboo requires people to actually be exposed.
Right.
And that's why the out campaign for being gay has been pushing that. It's like,
right.
If you want people to start accepting you, Get out of the closet.
Exactly.
And show them that you're a normal person next door.
Yep.
And they can deal with that.
That's one of the things that, like, I work in a garage, and I was having a meeting. I'm a team leader, and so we have meetings, and I like to listen to my podcast. And this is about the time my wife had put me into the podcast world for the first time, and I was trying to, see what it was all about. And so one of the very first podcasts that my wife had me listen to was The Scathing Atheist. And so during the meeting, I was playing, Noah was going on his diatribe and everything, and I was sitting there and I was giggling, and this was during a meeting. And so the guys were saying, well, what's so important? And I showed them my phone, and it said The Scathing Atheist. And they're like, oh, you're one of those. I was like, yeah. So from that day forward, everybody has known that I was an atheist at my shop. And but they've been working with me. I've been now
because the word spreads.
It does. But I was there for 12 years. I've been there for 12 years. And so it's like, Joy's an atheist. Well, what is this? And
who? Major Mac?
Major Mac. Got to get used to this.
Yeah, it does.
So they were like, Mac's an atheist. And I was like, yeah. So, the one of the guys I was working with was like, are you a Satan worshiper? And I was like, no, I'm not a Satan worshiper. Well, my cousin is a atheist, and he's a Satan worshiper. I said, like, well, then he's not a atheist.
Right. Not an atheist.
Yeah, and he was like, well, no, he is exactly that. And I was like arguing with him. I'm like, dude, the definition of atheist is that we don't believe in the supernatural. And I was like, if your cousin is worshiping Satan, then he is a Satanist, not an atheist. Right. I said, there is a different spelling there. And so,
the very definition of atheist is don't believe in that there's enough evidence for any gods or goddesses.
Exactly.
Well, how is Satan supposed to exist without God?
Right.
There'd be no point.
Exactly. So, I mean, they've tried through the years now that they've known I've been out. They've tried to talk to me, and each time they come to talk to me, each time they leave me, I think they're getting closer to coming to ReAsonCon. Because it's like when they come up with these questions, I come back with a different answer. Now, I am nowhere near versed in the Bible or anything like that, but I do know a few contradictory verses in there. But for the most part, I just make them think. It's like, I'm me. I am never changed. I didn't grow horns overnight. So they're like coming to me as a person, knowing me for so many years, and they're like, well, what are your morals? How do you get them? If God didn't give them to you, how did you get them? I said, well, how in the hell did you get yours? Right. So, it's like, I don't want you to hurt me, and I'm not, I'm sure, God, you don't want me to hurt you. That's
is it really that difficult?
As I said, it's not so much morals as it is a common sense. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to hurt other people. I want to do good. Don't you? It's like, yeah.
Morals is empathy.
Yeah.
It's just empathy. If you can understand why you wouldn't want somebody to beat you about your head and take your stuff,
exactly,
then you should be able to understand why you shouldn't do it to somebody else. That's not that difficult to understand, and it's not rocket science, and it does not require a supernatural being to tell us this.
Exactly. But sometimes I think they just need someone to tell them that. Other than their pastor or their make-believe character. So I think that's the people at work have accepted me, and I think that if another atheist was to come up to them, they would actually be, oh, hey, I know somebody just like you. Right. And it wouldn't be such a big deal now, but it's because I'm out. My wife, on the other hand, she works at a Lutheran school here in Hickory, and so that's the reason why I was so skeptical about using my real name on the podcast. I'm kind of protecting the innocent.
Right.
But for me, I don't give a shit. I don't care to use my name. I'm definitely, you can use it for any other purposes.
Well, I've talked about it before. That's exactly the reason, if you listen to almost any podcast, you're going to hear somebody slip up and say my real name.
Oh, yeah.
If you listen to it at all, you know what my real name is, or if you've been to ReAsonCon, or if the point was not to hide my identity from the people who listen to the podcast,
right,
or really the world. it was just so that, my employer or my customers or whoever couldn't just Google Atheist Avengers and that name pop up.
Right, exactly.
It was just simply to keep that little bit of anonymity from my professional life.
Right on.
And but it's the same thing you're saying about your wife and her school and you not being able to directly associate it with
exactly.
it. So we're not scared. That's not why we don't use our real names.
No.
But we do protect the innocent.
Exactly.
So to speak.
So I definitely, when you guys come to ReAsonCon, I will be my real name.
Right. Yeah.
I'm only going to be Mac here. So
well, I think I had tried to keep Wyatt the name. It didn't work. but I was already too well known. That sounds conceited. I was already known by enough people as my real name to keep it from working. If I'd have started from the very beginning, but
you mean like me? Nobody knows who I am.
No, there's plenty of people know who you are. I mean, you spend a lot of time on chat rooms and stuff for podcasts. They know
true.
who you are.
That's true.
They know your real name anyway.
Yeah, I've had some dinner with a few of them.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting ready to hit a break here. So let's just kind of wrap up. How are things now? What would you say with your family and your life? What point are you at with them accepting who you are, you accepting what they are, and how they've become religious? Where are you at with that?
Well, now that's a whole nother story right there in itself. I think they have pretty much come to an agreement that I am who I am and that I am not going to get religion overnight for them or anything like that. When it comes to their religion, they are now, because of me, being more questionable. They're asking more questions that they probably shouldn't ask in a church because I don't think they're going to get the right answers. And I think even several times my mom has actually skipped church where my dad doesn't yet. So when it comes to that,
you're such a bad influence.
I know. But yeah, I really think that my mom could probably stop church right now and be okay. But my dad, I think, is really needing something to cling on to in these last few years of life.
Probably got some friends there.
Yeah, and I really don't want to take it away from him. I mean, right now I can battle the prejudice and I can battle what little things that come into his head. We can talk it out, and he sees the reasonable stuff about it now. So I'm making him question it, and I think that's about all I can do with him. Mom, on the other hand, she's always been, I'm Mama's boy, and so she's going to listen to me a little bit more, and she's always been the one that's a lot more open-minded. So I think that's pretty much where it's come to with them and their church right now. So,
well, all right. Well, I think we'll take a little break. I would like to say that I was. We mentioned the Scathing Atheist a minute ago. We'll give them a little plug here. I was listening to the Scathing Atheist the other day and was laughing to the point I almost had to pull my car over. They were doing the
Vulgarity for Charity.
Vulgarity for Charity, which is hilarious. I love roasts. If you haven't seen the roast of God that we did at ReAsonCon last year, Google that shit because it's funny. And that was the Scathing Atheist that done that, and it was just hilarious. There's video up on YouTube. My deepest apologies that the audio quality is not terrific on that. We had an audio snafu on the recording device for that. So we ended up having to take the audio from the cameras, which of course is not ideal, but you can still hear it pretty well, and it's hilarious. But the Scathing Atheist guys, we appreciate the laughs. You guys do a great job. I was laughing my butt off. And they even got Demanda Wright in there.
Yes,
did you hear
did.
that?
Yes, they did.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, I called her the moment I heard it.
Oh, I would have loved to hear them do more. And I think instead of getting insulted, she actually was excited. So.
Oh, yes. Very excited.
But, all right. So we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we'll talk about, we talked about the heathen side of the podcast, then we'll talk about the the ex-Christian side of the podcast coming
Oh,
up.
yeah. Can't wait to hear this.
All right. Be right back. Hey, guess what, everyone? It is almost time for the Reason Rally 2016. June 4th is just right around the corner. Should be about a week and a half from the time that this show posts. We are so excited to be going to the Reason Rally, to be able to see all these wonderful speakers that are there. If you are getting to come to the Reason Rally, then I've got some great news. You can meet me. Oh, well, that's not really the exciting and great news part, because who cares about meeting me? But I will have exclusive ReAsonCon information that I'm giving out to those people who seek me out during the Reason Rally. I will also have discount coupons for ReAsonCon tickets. So not only will I have some exciting news about ReAsonCon, but you'll also get a discount ticket. So please, please keep an eye on the Facebook page Atheist Avengers, and keep an eye on the Reason NC Facebook page, which is the ReAsonCon Facebook page. Sometime during the rally, we will be posting our locations on those pages so that you can come out and meet us. Not only will it be me, but I will have with me Misbehaving from Promoting Secular Feminism, a great podcast. If you haven't listened to it, then go over to promotingsecularfeminism.com and listen to Princess Sparkle Farts. Now, if you think that sounds interesting, then go check that out. It's a great podcast. So anyway, keep watching our Facebook pages. It's facebook.com/Atheist Avengers, facebook.com/Reason4NC. That's Reason, the number 4, NC. And last but certainly not least, it's facebook.com/Promoting Secular Feminism. All spelled out. Promoting Secular Feminism. So keep an eye on those pages, like those pages, tell your friends to like those pages so everybody can have a chance to come out. Say hi to us. We really want to see you. And also get that information about ReAsonCon. We're so excited. ReAsonCon 2017 is going to happen in April of 2017. Mark your calendars for the 21st and the 22nd, 2017. Can't wait to see you at the Reason Rally, and definitely can't wait to see you at ReAsonCon 3.
Do you like the Atheist Avengers? Please like them on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Avengers, and go over to iTunes or Spreaker and give them 5 stars and leave an awesome review. Also, please consider supporting them on patreon.com/Atheist Avengers. They would really appreciate it, and maybe even send you a dirty pic of Major Mac in a Speedo. Winky smiley. Again, that's patreon.com/Atheist Avengers. Want to make a suggestion? Leave a comment, voice some criticism, or tell us a fucking dirty joke? Come on over to atheistavengers.com or send us an email at avengers@atheistavengers.com. Got something to say? Then fucking say it. Call our voicemail line at 828-367-7524. Thanks for listening to the Atheist Avengers. Now back to the show.
Oh, nobody's father who art nowhere. I know you can't hear me. Completely ignore this prayer. Nothing art thou, and nothing will thou ever be. Jesus was just a man. Amen.
All right, and welcome back to the Atheist Avengers. So today, myself, Wyatt Mathers, and Major Mac Guffin is just sitting around bullshitting. Shooting the shit, as we say here in North Carolina. We both have experiences, and they're not necessarily similar. So we thought maybe people would be interested in hearing our different experiences in life and how we got to where we're at. So, where do we go from here?
Well, I was thinking about let's find out what makes Agent Wyatt Mathers Agent Wyatt Mathers. How about your Christian upbringing?
Well, I was raised in a Pentecostal church. It was a Church of God, and they, it was the shouting, jumping pews.
Oh, shit.
Ladies shaking their hair. They come in with the big beehives all up, and then by the time the service was over, their beehive had fell down because they'd shaken all around and screamed and yelled. And it was that type of atmosphere that I grew up in. So for a long time, I just thought that was normal.
Wow.
When I was 8 years old, I started playing the drums in church. So that kind of tells you what kind of music and tempo we had. I played the drums in church, and I think one of my earliest experiences with starting to question what was going on as far as the emotion that they were calling the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Now, I don't know if have you ever been to one of those services?
Fortunately, no. I've had the pleasure of not being involved in it.
You need to go check it out sometime. It's quite hilarious. It can be scary if you're kind of, is this real? Is it not? It's actually more scary than funny, I guess. But if you're a skeptic and you've already kind of understood about the bullshitness of it all,
wow,
it can be kind of funny. Kind of like watching Benny Hinn, where he's waving his arms at people and they're falling down.
Oh my gosh!
So one of my early experiences with starting to question was when I realized that me playing the drums, how I was playing the drums, could control the emotion of the crowd. Now, my young Christian brain was telling me, well, that's just God working through me.
Mm-hmm.
But now I realize that no, it was just emotion, and music is a powerful stimulant to emotion.
Oh, yes.
So me being able to play the drums a certain way to get people hyped up and going was just that.
Right.
It was just stimulating their emotion and causing them to think that this is God touching me because I'm feeling this certain way and I'm going to play this part.
Gotcha.
Which was what I really understood it to be, or understand it now to be. They were playing a part because, and a lot of people don't know this, I spoke in tongues. Now, at the time I did that, I was surrounded by a bunch of people who were standing there slapping me on the back, going, just open yourself up to God. Just open yourself up to God. If you open yourself up to God, it'll happen. It'll happen. So I didn't have any choice. I had to do it. So I played that part. And I remember thinking at that point, oh, I'm such a faker. I'm so fake. God wouldn't touch me and allow me to do this. And he wouldn't, I'm not being open enough to God. What's wrong with me? Why am I so bad? And then later on, I'm like, well, maybe I really did do that. Maybe I really did. And what I come to realize is that's what happens in everybody's mind when that happens, is everybody thinks they're being a faker.
Wow.
And they just convince themselves that either they convince themselves that it really happened or they just continue to live the lie.
Wow.
So once I started understanding those things, it was very difficult to hang on. But I did for a long time. I went to a Christian college, and it was one of those where they had chapel twice or 3 times a week, and you were required to be there. They scanned your ID as you went in.
Documenting it.
Yeah, they would scan your ID as you went in and went out. So you couldn't, show up, get your ID scanned, and then leave.
Right.
They would know.
Tricky bastards.
Oh, yeah. And people were trying to sneak other people's IDs in and get them scanned because, it was other students that were doing the scanning. So sometimes you get away with that.
Oh, wow.
But, so it was a very fundamental atmosphere on the surface.
Right.
But the liberal aspect to it, because it was still a college,
Right.
was underneath. So it's like we'd go to these church services and we'd listen to the chapel services, they'd call them. We'd listen to these preachers and they'd tell us how bad, homosexuals are and how partying is terrible. And then that night we'd be at a party.
Right.
With, openly gay people who were not open. They not openly gay. They were gay people who were not admitting it to the school. And it was, it was just really wild. So when I come back from college, I was really questioning, but I was trying to hang on for that social aspect we were talking about earlier. So, I'd go to church and I'd do my drama ministry stuff because I was real big into drama ministry. I was a theater type person. And, so it kept going. As far as my family, it's very interesting because my mother was very religious, but she allowed me to think for myself. Mm. So I always fell in line, so to speak, with what I thought she wanted from me, as far as going to church and things. But I can honestly say, even though she raised me with what she thought, she was doing the best she could. She thought that was what was the best influence in my life.
Right.
I get that. But she did not push it on me.
Right.
Never. If I ever said, no, I don't want to go to church, she would not, you're going to church, you better get your clothes on. She was always just like, okay.
Right.
Now, she didn't have to do that very much because a lot of times I wanted to go to church because that's where all my friends were.
Right. I get that.
Now, my dad, on the other hand, my dad was, I call him the agnostic without knowing he's agnostic. He's agnostic about being agnostic.
There you go.
So he grew up with my grandfather, which my grandfather was religious to the point of being abusive.
Wow.
I mean, he was Bible thumping to the 100th degree.
Right.
He's the type of person that would go up to somebody in the parking lot of Walmart and start preaching to them.
No.
And praying for them and telling them they're sinners and going to hell or whatever.
Right.
He was in World War II. He had real bad shell shock, which now we know is PTSD.
Right.
And he suffered from PTSD his whole life.
Right.
From when he come back from war. I mean, he was 17 years old when they took him for the war. Mm. And they made him a sniper. He's a country boy from the side of the mountain, up here in the mountains of North Carolina. And they took him and made him a sniper, killing people. He used to talk about seeing people, seeing the whites of their eyes and shooting them right between them.
Wow.
So when he come back, of course, he grabbed on to the only thing that he had and was raised with, which was his religion.
Right.
And he wore it like a badge, It was, or he carried it around like a bat, is what I've often said.
Right.
It was, if you were going to listen to it, or you were going to get hit in the head with it.
Wow.
So, my dad spent a lot of time trying to protect me from that.
Right.
And my dad spent a lot of time being fearful that he would, not necessarily about religion, but about anything in my life, that he would be pushy to the point of being abusive.
Right. That makes sense.
So he was very laid back and supported me with whatever I wanted to do.
Well, that's cool.
My dad was kind of a country guy. I mean, he wasn't a farmer. He was a restaurant guy. He managed restaurants. So I would say he was conservative, Republican, all that kind of stuff. But and I'm sure when I got involved with theater,
right,
that was difficult for him. Just knowing that the stigma with his friends that went along with the theater stuff.
I get you. Because sometimes when I was growing up, theater was actually supposedly quote gay.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I get that.
Yeah, there was a lot of assumptions there,
Right.
with that. But when my dad was younger, he was a barber, and he learned how to do all these other things like perms and stuff.
Right.
So he became a hairstylist as well.
Right.
So he'd kind of been through that kind of taboo, being a hairstylist, and what
exactly.
that notates there as well. But yeah, he was always very supportive, and I'll never forget, and it's been pretty recently, within the last 10 years, the first time I used the word atheist around him. Now, he had known for a long time that I didn't believe in God. But finally, one day I used the word atheist, and he just stopped and looked at me and was like, wait, you're an atheist? Well, yeah, Dad, what did you think not believing in God meant? And he was like, I didn't think about it, but an atheist? So it was like the definition was okay.
Right. It was
but the word was not.
Exactly.
So it was really weird, that interaction. Then I walked away from that interaction feeling the most uncomfortable I had ever felt.
Right.
With talking with my dad about religion or non-religion or whatever. And a couple of weeks later, I went back and I said, what do you think about this? He said, well, I've been thinking about it. And he said, you've always been smarter than me. This is what my dad tells me. You've always been smarter with me. And you've obviously put more thought into it than I ever did. So who am I to condemn it or have any judgment about it whatsoever?
Oh, that's cool.
So I thought that was pretty cool of him. He's always considered, from the time I was probably 14, 15 years old, he's valued my opinion about everything.
Right.
And then my mother, in 2006, she got sick and she passed away in 2007. And my dad and I went through a lot. And that was a time where we could have, because everybody was pushing religion on us.
Oh, yeah.
And they were using her as emotional blackmail. Well, she would be very upset if she found out you wasn't going to church on a regular basis. And all this emotional blackmail that was really pissing me off. So that was a time where we could have kind of said, okay, well, the society is pressuring us, and it's easier just to back up and say, okay, we go to church and we'll believe in God. But he never pushed me to do that, and I never pushed him to go either way.
Well, that is good. So
he's still kind of what I would consider in that limbo stage where he thinks I make a lot of sense. He just doesn't want to commit. Because with growing up with his father, he's always just been whatever.
Right.
There's no big deal. Church is not something I need to even really think about. And he didn't. I can count on one hand how many times my dad went to church with us when I was a kid.
Right.
But he never told my mom that she couldn't take us to church, or he never had any input for her. It's like she had her influence on us and he had his influence on us, and it worked really well, actually.
Right.
You wouldn't think it would work well because it didn't sound like they were both on the same page, but it really did, because it allowed me to think for myself.
Right.
And that was the most important thing that they could ever do for me. And that's what I think a lot of Christian parents now miss out on doing for their children. And frankly, they can't. They can't let their children think for themselves.
No.
Because they'll end up like me.
Exactly.
Doing an atheist podcast.
There you go.
But they really can't. I mean, it's dangerous for their religion for them to let their children think for themselves. And I think that says a lot about the validity of their religion as a whole.
Right. So that brings me to a question then. Like me, I didn't have religion pushed down my throat or anything. So for most of my life, I have never had a resentment towards religion. I mean, there's a few incidences that have actually been like personal to me, like when my uncle committed suicide. We went to the church service and they were telling his mother, who died less than a year later, that he is in hell. He is suffering for what he did.
Oh, gosh.
And so I got up and actually walked out of the church service. Because I was already a non-believer, always been. But this solidified the animosity toward the church for me and just certain pastors. But my uncle, the Reverend, he actually done the rest of our services for our family, and he speaks about the person. He doesn't speak about the God or anything like that, because this is his family members. And so we never got God, he would say, God, take this person to, your heavenly home or whatever. But that was it. That was from then on. That was the way our church services were done with my uncle. So me going to that, it sounds to me like, listening to your childhood, that you actually probably don't have any animosity toward religion either, personally. So, or am I taking it the wrong way?
I would say that it's half and half,
right?
Because I do fondly remember church,
right,
as a social thing,
right, as
a community of people who genuinely cared about me. And I still have some friends that I made.
Right.
The guy that's been my best friend since second grade, I met him in church.
Right.
We've always been good friends. He's always been there for me. I've always been there for him. And what's funny about our relationship is that we both come out of religion,
right,
and stop believing. But we were afraid to tell each other. We actually didn't tell each other. And then finally one day, I'll never forget, it was sitting on his back deck drinking beer. And we're sitting there, and I just finally said, I just been thinking about it a lot. And I just really don't know if I believe in God anymore. He's like, dude, are you serious? It's like, holy crap. I've been thinking the same thing. So then that opened us up to be able to talk about it, and we were able to bounce ideas back and forth off each other. And I would say that was a big relief off me, because probably he was the only person in the world that I would have really cared.
Right.
If he, other than my wife, but I already knew where my wife was at. We've always been super open, but
right,
if he would have rejected that probably would have been a stumbling block for me.
Right.
If he would have said, no, we can't be friends if you're an atheist, and I've often talked about my mother being gone.
Right.
I realize that gives me, that makes it easier on me.
Right.
And I know that sounds terrible, and I know people are going to misunderstand what I'm saying when I say that, but my mother, although she believed and let me think for myself, she would have been concerned.
Yes.
Because of the way she was raised and her beliefs that, heaven was real and hell was real, she would have been concerned. And that would have been a hindrance to me, to make her worry about me.
Right.
Any more than she already did. She was already a worrywart. So I can say that it makes it easier.
Right.
Now, to get back to your question about the animosity, I think I do look at religion as a lie.
Right.
As a lie that they taught me was truth without having any backup for it.
Right.
But again, kind of like the parents can't let their children think for themselves. Mm-hmm. They couldn't tell me, well, this is what we think, but we don't know this for sure. They couldn't say that.
Right.
Because then every kid would go, oh, well,
this is bullshit.
That is bullshit. That doesn't sound right. And if you're not even confident on it, then,
right.
So I realized why they had to do that,
right,
to protect what they thought was virtue and
right,
what was good for society, which was religion.
Exactly.
So yeah, they couldn't allow me to think for myself, and I get that. But so I think I do hold on to a little bit of animosity there, because I feel like they were lying to me. But then the empathy
right
comes in, and I realize that they understood that to be the best thing they could do for me.
Exactly.
They cared about me and was giving me what they thought was the best thing for me. So I have that empathy there for them, but yet they were still lying to me.
Right.
So but they didn't know they were lying. So it's really difficult. I can't be mad at them. I certainly am not mad at my mother because she truly believed that this was out there. I can appreciate the fact that she didn't push it on me anymore. She did.
Right.
That she wasn't abusive with it because I've seen that.
Exactly.
I've experienced that, and she wasn't that way.
Yeah, I know we've heard some stories through our friends and stuff about the abuse that religion has caused them. I didn't have that personal experience, and so only through empathy for my friends is the animosity that I now hold toward the church and the religions in particular. I never had it done to me, so through their stories is why I feel like that when you came to me about asking about doing a podcast with you, I was like, yeah, let's try something. Yeah, I mean, through listening to the other podcasters and everything, I've actually learned a lot. They have taught me things, and listening to their personal stories is why I wanted to try to see if I could get my voice out there. I mean, I know that I don't have the experiences that they do, but through their, through my empathy toward them, I'm hoping to be able to educate others in the same way that they've educated me and brought me into this fold with them.
Right. Well, we've said it before and we'll say it again. I mean, and I know it sounds like I'm patting us on the back a little bit too, but the podcasts are important.
Oh, I definitely agree.
That it is really, honestly, in most cases, the first line of defense against free thinking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for free thinking.
For free thinking.
Because a lot of people, when they start thinking about whether religion is true or God is real, they can't go to anybody in their life. No one around them. I mean, there was years that me and my friend and I thought exactly the same way, and we couldn't talk to each other about it.
Right.
Because we were too afraid to open up that Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody's able to get online and download a podcast of people discussing these very ideas and this unity of skeptical thinking, then play it through their personal device, their phone or whatever, through a set of earphones, and nobody even knows what they're listening to. There's a freedom there that you don't. What else? What else is out there?
Exactly.
For you to do that with. So it's the first line, and it allows people to find that common ground, because I've heard it said many times where people are like, they figured out that somebody in their family or somebody they worked with was on the same wavelength they were,
right? Just
by discussing, hey, you ever listen to any podcasts?
Exactly. Well, on my last family reunion, just as a matter of fact, I actually found out that 3 of my other cousins are actually atheists as well.
Yeah.
And they've never told anybody. And they're like, please just keep it a secret from the family. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, apparently my dog's going to make a guest appearance on every show we do here.
Hey, that's good.
Can't keep her quiet.
Our mascot.
Well, she's a guard dog, so anytime anybody comes to the door, she makes sure we knows about it. But yeah, I mean, I guess I hope I answered your question. I don't really have the animosity. The animosity is only skin deep,
right? Exactly.
It's on the surface. It pisses me off that these things happen, but then I say, well, they were doing what they thought they
exactly.
needed to do.
Well, we could go back to our recent North Carolina bill. It was passed because of religious standards, religious morals, where trans people can't use the proper bathrooms now, and that right there pisses me off. I mean, if I didn't, I don't. It does not affect me personally, but it affects my friends.
Sure,
it affects people that I know, and that pisses me off. I mean, that's something that years ago wouldn't have even bothered me, but now it does because I have friends that are trans. And so, yeah, it is really bothersome. And then that's where now my animosity comes in that I never had before. So
I'm pulling up the post that I put up yesterday, and if you follow us on Facebook, which you should follow us on Facebook, if you don't,
I follow us.
You better. No, I'm just kidding. Do if you want to. Don't do it. I don't. It's nice to have those likes, but I don't live my life by likes. So a friend of mine put up a post that said, "Sorry, folks, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. We'll have to wait until it decides," said no doctor ever. And it's a meme with a woman sitting there and a baby, and the doctor's working on the baby. And I just posted, well, intersex babies are born all the time. So this meme is pretty ignorant. But I get that this is not trying to be scientifically accurate. It's just trying to belittle transgender people. So yeah, it does that. This was a friend of mine that may not be a friend anymore because a lot of the conservative stuff she posts on her page, I let go and I let it pass by. But you just said the word friend.
Yes.
And I honestly have transgender friends that I care a lot about. And they're the ones who've taught me.
Exactly.
They've taught me that they aren't just normal people. Mm-hmm. Contrary to what I was raised to believe, contrary to the demonic lifestyle that they're supposed to be leading, that I was taught,
perverted lifestyle,
the perverted, just if they're gay, they're worshiping Satan, just like if they're atheist, they're worshiping Satan. I mean, it's just all goes back to that. They've taught me that they're people. And they're caring, and they're loving, and they're sweet, and they're people that I enjoy being around.
Yes, Callie, right. We are talking about you.
Callie was, probably the closest, the first transgender person that I got close to enough to where I could say she was a good friend. I mean, I had known other transgender people, but I would say that she's a very good advocate.
I would definitely say so.
For the transgender community, because nobody can hate Callie Wright.
Exactly. Well, not only that, but, who else in the middle of any type of time of the day I can drop a line to Callie and say, hey, what do you feel about this subject? Will you come on our show and talk about it? And the next day she's like, hell, let's go live. It's like... Well, this is the type of person she is. You ask and she's there. I've
heard people ask her at conferences and stuff, what kind of questions is off limits for us to ask you? And before they even finish that sentence, she's like, nothing. You ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything. And she really means that, because I've heard people get very drunk and ask her some very personal questions.
Oh, yes.
And she is just completely happy to answer them, because she knows that those things are going on in people's minds anyway.
Right.
So it's best to get out there and say, okay, you've got this question, let's answer it. Let's not be scared of it. Let's not be ashamed of it. It is what it is. Let's answer it. So anyway, we love Callie.
Yes, we do.
Well, I think she's been part of like the last 3 episodes we've done.
Yes.
But if you have not listened to the Atheist Manifesto, you need to go listen to it. She's so smart and so sweet, and gives the best hugs in the world.
Oh, yes.
And
I think she damn near broke my rib.
She'll give you a bear hug if you want it. She don't mind squeezing. That's all right. But she taught me a lot.
Actually, she teaches us every time I listen to an episode.
Absolutely. So anyway, what were we talking about?
We were talking about the trans and our friends, and
yeah, before that.
Oh God, got me.
Just being friends, and having friends, and taking up for your friends.
Exactly, having the empathy.
There's a thing going around on Facebook that talks about, I wasn't gay, so I didn't stand up for the gay people. an immigrant, so I didn't stand up for immigrants, and I wasn't black, so I didn't stand up for the blacks.
Right.
Now I'm being persecuted, and there's no one left to stand up for me.
Right.
You know, and I truly believe that. I think that there will be a time where we need people to stand up for us, and if we didn't stand up for them, how can we possibly expect them to stand up for us?
Exactly.
And that's coming from a place of white privilege, and I get that. You know, I get it's hard for me and people like me, white straight males,
Bald.
to say, no hair, to say, or to understand the gravity of advocating for minorities.
Right.
I get it. But we must, and we have to be allies, and we have to be willing to stand up. And I guess the little bit of animosity that is there from religion has more to do with those issues than how I was raised.
Exactly.
Because I can't really complain about how I was raised. I wasn't abused.
Right.
I wasn't taught a lot of hate. I mean, there was some, but it was easily overcome. Racism, I was lucky in my home that was not a factor. But nowadays, with all the negative hate that they put across and use religion to justify it, that's where I'm going to get pissed.
Yes.
And I think that's where we all need to be pissed. And that's where we got to stand up and say, listen, because we get blamed for persecuting or oppressing the religion.
Right.
As a whole, and persecuting the person as a person, just because we stand up and say, listen, I don't care if you don't like gays. I don't care if you don't think they should get married. But the law should not be written
exactly
because of your beliefs or according to your beliefs. They shouldn't be written according to my beliefs. They should be written from a secular standpoint that causes everyone to be on an even playing field and everyone has the same type of rights.
Right on.
But they think that not letting them oppress others is oppressing them. And that's where we have the problem. That's where we end up with the fight.
Exactly.
And that's why we end up
with the Atheist Avengers.
With the Atheist Avengers.